Hi, welcome to another consonant analysis. My analysis today continues on from previous analyses I've done on the painting title of the painting that was produced by Petrina Ryan-Kleid, Kleid, and the subject was Bill Clinton in a blue dress and wearing red high heels. So in that analysis, I actually delved into the title itself, which was Parsing Bill, to see if I could pick out any clues as to the intention behind the artist. And the reason for that was what's going to be covered in my analysis today, which is that when the artist who produced the piece was questioned about it, it seemed like she was very circumspect or very blasé or very bland with regards to the statement that she made, given the nature of the piece, which is quite shocking or quite surprising. And so I'm going to go into that today. So the context is Pretrina Ryan-Kleid, the artist of the now viral painting Parsing Bill, which is a portrait of the 42nd President of the United States of America, that's Bill Clinton, was questioned by a reporter about the portrait and replied that it was a piece she had painted while as an art student and that she'd essentially forgotten about it and that she was not aware to whom it had been sold. So the reason why I'm performing this analysis is because there's so much floating around about it, and also I sincerely didn't believe that was the case. What she'd actually said, there was more to it than that. So what I decided to do was take an extract from what she'd said, which seemed like pertinent, and I chose 12 as a grad student, not 20. 2012. I took the 12 part. The reason why I didn't take the 20 or the 2000 part is because I don't know how she actually said that, because it was written in words, and there's two ways you can say 2012 for the year. You can say 2012 or 2012. So to be on the safe side, I just took the 12 part, which I knew she would have said, and the remaining words, which are as a grad student. And indeed, again, as usual, the yield doesn't disappoint. So moving into my interpretation for the whole report, I put the subject, given her sensed inability to change a situation with words, painted the piece to realise and broadcast her message, i.e. that sexual harassment is unacceptable, particularly in high office. So that's what I got from the analysis. It's quite clear that she was actually saying more. She was actually saying more with the painting than what came across when she spoke to the reporter and made a rather blasé statement. And when I go into the comments, what I explain is that I think the reason for that is because if you look at the rest of the report, it seems that she seems to find her voice through her paintings. So if she has a particular point that she needs to put forward, it comes out in the painting. And given the nature of what it was that she wanted to talk about, it's a case of one person, what voice did they have, and who was she anyway? She was just a painter. So the way that the power that she found in her voice was putting out in the painting, and boy, was that a powerful message, because it's gone viral around the internet. So hands off to Petrina for that. She's spot on the mark. In terms of getting her message across. And it's all like it seems that when the reporter went to her to ask her the question, they missed the point. The whole point about the painting, I mean, it's staring you in the eyes. Obviously, she's sending out some sort of a message. It's very unique subject matter. There's so many strange things about it. Why would she not be sending a message? And can't you tell what that was? Can't you tell what that is? So that's the message that she's sending out. That she definitely doesn't disagree with what the subject matter is. The subject matter is about. And she's clearly expressing that in unequivocal terms. So anyway, to go on to the report now, as usual, what you'll notice is I've highlighted the reports in the description below, so you can print it out and read it with me as I'm going through it, or you can read it at your leisure at a later time. What I've done is I've highlighted the different words and the corresponding consonants which are pulled out from the words. and you'll find those colours actually follow through the whole report. So you'll be able to see what colours or what consonants match with what words and what interpretations. Okay, moving on to the highlight section where I go over my interpretation of what each word means or what it signifies based on the markers. So I've put number 1, the word 12 is highlighted in red and is interpreted as in the forward analysis. If you don't know what forward analysis means and you're new to my channel, when I pull out consonants from somebody's speech, I can read them either forwards or backwards. So in other words, I can read them the way that they're actually spoken, or I can actually flip them and read them. And the advantage of flipping them is it tends to give an underlying intention. It gives the intention behind what somebody said rather than what they've actually said, which is often more important from an analysis point of view and for people's interest. And sometimes what I do, if it's only a few consonants, because it takes quite a long time to actually analyse, what I will do is I'll actually do the forward and the reverse in the same report, like I have in this case, because I've only got a short phrase, so it maximises the yield, and it's often more balanced and more interesting. So to continue, the forward analysis for the word 12, which is highlighted in red, I've interpreted as meaning it was to be. Clinton was enthralled by and in love with women. He was out of his mind. They became close to each other. That resulted in the stain on a dress. She spoke up and Clinton was afraid, with nowhere to turn. And how that interpretation fits onto the word, I don't know, because the word is just 12. So I don't know. Usually what I try and do is try and find a match between the interpretation that I've made and the word itself. In this case, I'm not able to do so. However, with these analyses, therefore, it's for general consumption, so it may be that somebody out there who wishes to use this report as a reporter or an investigator, this may be useful to them. So moving on to the reverse analysis for the word 12, I've got, my interpretation is, Clinton displayed extremely amorous behaviour towards women. He was a philanderer. He desecrated them as he danced around them. His eyes were on their figures. He liked them young. He made a simple job of working for the government muddled and complicated for himself and the women around him by his behaviour. He sullied and tarnished his position. So all of the things that I'm saying here, they're directly pulled out of the markers. The markers are the three consonants at a time, which I read from the string of consonants that are taken out of the phrase, and I check them against the source reference, which has got 3 consonants in a long list. And you'll find all of the markers, as I call them, at the end of the report. As they can be a bit wieldy, what I always do is I have like a theme section. So the theme section, which we'll come on to, that's basically, it's a summary. So I've taken all of the components or all of the keywords out of the markers and I've put them into one place. So it makes it easy for you to digest. And then if you want to go into the markers to get the original reference, where they came from, then you'll have a roadmap. You'll be prepped. So when you look into them, it'll be easy for you to understand them. However, it's not necessary because like I said, I've made a summary and everything else that I'm doing, like commenting and highlighting and interpreting various things. So how the interpretation that I've made in the reverse analysis about Clinton being extremely amorous around young women and dancing around them, I don't know how the word 12 actually fits with that particular interpretation. But the markers do. So 2 in highlights, the word as is highlighted in yellow and is interpreted as, in the forward analysis, his leering led to being burned. And how the interpretation fits the word, the eyes are not only the place where everything starts, but they are the focus of expression. In this case, there was the leering, then the closeness, then the fear of being found out. As is for how. In other words, how something is manifested. In this case, the eyes were how it all started and how it ended, with eyes cast down. So moving on to the reverse analysis for the word as. So I've put here, Clinton's activities of flirting and dancing around women, compelling them to respond, begrimed his status. And how the interpretation fits the word, Clinton as a person used a set method or an MO, modus operandi, in other words, a way of working, to court women, but as the president, he begrimed the office. Highlight 3, the word grad. She mentions that she was a grad student. Is highlighted in green and is interpreted as, in the forward analysis, he liked leering at women, which is something I have to talk about and talk out against. My painting is a rather beautiful work, which points to a more ugly truth, because I am not at his low level. I am a true artist, and I paint reality in a beautiful way. I try to show the reality of his actions through the clues I leave in my choice of elements for the onlooker to sift and decode. It is a subtle way of getting my message across, to deal a blow, to crush someone who denigrated his office, make the way clear again, and send a message out to anyone who would do likewise. So, I actually, from this analysis, the next analysis I do, or the next analysis that I'm going to do, is actually on Petrina's name, and it matches almost identically what you'll find in this report in terms of her methodology, her way of doing things. You know, she didn't just do a painting, but she's got a particular way of expressing herself, and that really comes out in the analysis for her name, which is going to be up next. So, how the interpretation fits the word. A person's behaviour is graded, because the word is grad, you see, is graded according to the position that they occupy. In this case, there appears to be a gross mismatch. In other words, this person has occupied this office, but his behaviour is not commensurate, or it's not in line with what he's supposed to be doing, i.e. be the President of the United States of America. So the reverse analysis for the word grad, I've got, my interpretation is, I consider this to be a stark reprimand for what essentially was a farce, and one which I found to be both tiring and bewildering. This artwork is a message to both the harassers, who pay no attention to the impropriety of their actions, and also to their targets, who may feel dazzled by the attention and what comes from it, and from whom it comes. And how the interpretation fits the word. The subject is being graded by the artist and receives a low grade for his behaviour. People are being graded according to status and gender vis-a-vis the relative positions that they occupy, and are being given advice commensurate with these attributes. So the artist is actually talking to people on the level of gender and age, and reprimanding them or advising them as appropriate. So moving on to point 4 in highlights, the word student is highlighted in blue and is interpreted as, so in the forward analysis I put, I have a moral duty to speak out, and in speaking out I am paving the way for others to come forward, to stop that which has become spoiled. My way of doing this was to smuggle my message into a painting that would be unveiled obviously as a showpiece along with all my other paintings. I truly had forgotten about this piece, but thinking about it now I remember. My message is that this person thought he was God. I was in two minds whether to paint it or not, but I'm glad that I did. It is taking a stand for women everywhere, and to stand against what they have to endure in the workplace and generally in society, against the desecration of the edifice that is womanhood, which this vile individual trampled all over. I've said enough, let's change the subject. The painting says it all. The painting does say it all. How the interpretation fits the word. The artist is well studied when it comes to the behaviour of men who engage in sexual harassment and sexist behaviours. The reverse analysis for the word student is as follows. It's difficult for me to get my message across verbally. I don't think people would hear me. I'm just a single voice, but my painting sends out a loud message, one that people can rally around for a good purpose until they're shouting. It is an artist's way of making a generous gesture, of selling an idea that can unite people under one banner. This guy is diseased and this was a cure. It gets me down, all this sexual harassment, especially in public office. It was the only message I could send out, and I hope my efforts weren't in vain, but I don't know. So she's not sure of herself. She's not like cocky or proud or anything. She's not sure of herself, but She believes that's the best thing that she could do, and indeed it was, Petrina, because this picture or this painting of yours has gone viral. How the interpretation relates to the word. The artist was a student and as a learner felt naturally cautious, having not yet been deemed to be a professional. A loss of voice or lack of confidence would certainly be understandable in such a position. So she's still a student. Mind you, we're all students, aren't we? It's life is a university, as they say. So moving on to my comments. With regards to the highlights. 1. Character. From what we have learned about the artist, from her painting ability, her intelligence, her reserve, you really get a sense of a woman who has a high sense of morality and justice, and that's something that actually comes out in the analysis of her name, which I'm going to go on to in another video, which is emphasised if you look how calmly, outwardly she expresses herself, yet how angered she is internally, and yet how, despite her anger, she manages to compose it all into an elegant piece which is now famous around the world. Very composed, very wise, exactly the sort of person who should be in a high office. So, yeah, so perhaps she could give Bill Clinton and his likes, a bit of advice or two, which actually she's done in her painting. I have seemed to notice from performing constant analysis on women that they do have a very distinct character different from that of men. They tend to be reserved, yet under the surface, there I often find a fire and water, and the outer skin manages to contain these two contrasts. It's very striking for anyone who would perform these analyses as I do, and it is remarkably consistent across subjects, though the artist seems like a very quiet person. I feel we should applaud her for her bravery and her efforts in setting the world to rights in her own unique way. Whether you could call it small is debatable, given her work's newfound fame. Well done, Pretrina. You get top marks in this class. And comments 2. Her reaction. So putting myself in Petrina's position, given all that I've said in the analysis, I can quite understand why she reacted the way that she did, i.e. gave a rather bland answer to a question posed about the painting. As a person who voices herself through her art, it should be blatantly obvious to anyone who sees her paintings what she is trying to say through them. And if someone can't work that out, there's no point in talking to them as she talks through her paintings. And that's what people must listen to. People have to understand about her. If someone is so inept that they can't work out what she's trying to say, there's really no point in talking to them. In a way, it's quite vulgar and insulting to not understand this point, when the specific point of inquiry is actually about the painting. So these people are coming to her, and it's like they don't get that she's an artist. She expresses herself through her art. So if you look at the art, it explains itself. It explains their viewpoint. Why are you coming and asking her questions? Why do you want some salacious gossip or, some little tidbits, for your newspaper? It's not about that. It's a work of art. She put a lot of effort into it, and she didn't do that so people could just sort of like blank that and ride all over it and then start asking you what the piece is about. It's blatantly obvious. It stares you in the face, what it's about. So moving on to themes, I've grouped the themes as I've mentioned are components that I've taken from the analysis, the actual raw analysis, the markers, as they're keywords that I've taken out, and I've actually grouped them into some sort of like sensible order. They'll make it to understand how they relate to the subject that's being discussed. So I've grouped them into 3: Clinton, women, the artist. So Clinton, I've got here. I'll just read through the list: abuse, amorous, arrogance, begrimed, blameless, blind love, breasts, because that's mentioned. It's an exact marker actually. Court, compel, dance, deception, desecrate, desires, despicable, diseased, dishonour, escape, exposure, farce, fear, force, flirt, impropriety, indifferent, leering, love making, luxury, living, opportunity, philandering, proximity, relationships, reputation, secrets, slave, wander, worship, soiled, sullied, tarnish, and women. And for women, I've got brush off, compelled, complicated, dazzled, and forced. And for the artist, I've got, which is what the reporter should have recognised, is accentuate, announce, broadcast, crush, disheartened, doubt, empower, investigate, level, message, moved on, rally, repair, reprimand, satisfied, scrutinise, smuggle, stab, tired, treat, i.e. a disease, vengeance, and weak. So that's it for my report on what my interpretation of Petrina Ryan-Kleid's take on the painting, what she actually meant when she told the reporter that she did the painting as a grad student in 2012 or 2012. That essentially, she's not happy with the. I mean, this is my interpretation. I don't want to put like words into people's mouths, but looking at it, what I would say, what I get from it is that, she was speaking out for women, generally, I suppose, but specifically for that particular situation, and it was like a satirical piece that she produced. And she has produced other ones in the series, like this one with George Bush playing with paper aeroplanes. And that was the way that she, found her voice. And indeed, it was a very powerful voice. And by the auspices of destiny, or how things tend to pan out, it just happened to be hung in the home or the New York mansion of Jeffrey Epstein, the now disgraced paedophile. So that's all I have for you today. If you like the content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. The like button and the subscribe button are down there. Remember. My report and a link to the source article will be in the description below. It's been wonderful having you. Hope to see you in the next video, which hopefully should be an analysis of Petrina's name. And have a nice day.